Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Answering Bart Ehrman. In this episode, we continue to read chapter 1 of his book and to look at the examples that he now gives of the contradictions in the Bible. And so we're going to begin with the first one, which is Jesus' cleansing of the temple. So, Matthew, can you please read from Bart Ehrman's book for us?
Great. So this is beginning at page 6, and Ehrman is basically comparing two passages, Mark chapter 11 and John chapter 2. So he says, to be sure, many beginning students are expert at reconciling differences among the Gospels. For example, the Gospel of Mark indicates that it was in the last week of his life that Jesus cleansed the temple by overturning the tables of the money changers and saying, "This is to be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves." Whereas according to John, this happened at the very beginning of Jesus' ministry. Some readers have thought that Jesus must have cleansed the temple twice, once at the beginning of his ministry and once at the end. But that would mean that neither Mark nor John tells the true story, since in both accounts he cleanses the temple only once. Moreover, is this reconciliation of the two accounts historically plausible? If Jesus made a disruption in the temple at the beginning of his ministry, why wasn't he arrested by the authorities then? Once one comes to realize that the Bible might have discrepancies, it's not possible to see that the Gospels of Mark and John might want to teach something different about the cleansing of the temple. And so they've located the event to two different times in Jesus' ministry. Historically speaking, then, the accounts are not reconcilable. So that's what he's got to say about the cleansing of the temple, Sam. What do you think in response to that?
Yeah, look, I think it's a strange one to lead with, because in the previous pages, he's been saying how much evidence there is for these contradictions in the Bible and it not being reliable. And regardless of whether you read Matthew or Mark, they're both saying Jesus went in and cleansed the temple. So there's no historians who are saying Jesus didn't cleanse the temple. It's just a question of when he did it. But there's overwhelming agreement that he did do it, and the character of what he did when he did it. So I find this a strange one, and that's just my first point, that everyone agrees Jesus went in and cleansed the temple.
There's no gospel saying, and behold, he didn't cleanse the temple.
Yes. Yeah. Like if there was a gospel saying Jesus didn't cleanse the temple, then that would be a problem. But they're all saying he did. So, let's not ignore the overwhelming agreement here. Yeah, that'd be my first observation.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, I'm struck that he's he raises the possibility and dismisses it quickly that maybe he cleansed the temple twice, once at the beginning of his ministry and once at the end. Perhaps he did, perhaps he didn't. I think he dismisses it far too quickly, though, because there are things that Jesus did more than once that some of the Gospels record once and some record both instances. The key example being his feeding a multitude of people miraculously. The first instance of that, he feeds 5,000 people, and then a separate incident a little later, he feeds 4,000 people. The first occasion is recorded in all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The second occasion is just in Matthew and Mark. So it's not in Luke and John. Nobody's saying it didn't happen twice, or that Luke and John aren't telling the full story or the true story, or however he says it, because they don't record both feedings. All it means is that the Gospel authors, none of them mention everything. And we already knew that. That's not a surprise. So I don't buy him saying that if he did it twice, if Jesus cleansed the temple twice, then neither Mark nor John tells the true story. It could be that they're both just highlighting a different event, because the particular account of Jesus' ministry that they're telling, it's important to at that point in their telling. Or perhaps that's the one that they knew. So that's worth considering, I think.
No, I think so. And I think it's a great example that you've given, where there are examples of Jesus doing major things twice, but two of the Gospels only record it once. And so there's a precedent there. It's certainly possible. The other one I was thinking about was he said if Jesus had done this the first time, then why wasn't he arrested? And, he said that in the quote. He goes, why wasn't he arrested the first time? And, well, he wasn't arrested immediately after cleansing the temple the second time. So it's not even a valid point that
He was arrested because Judas went and betrayed him and led the authorities there. Yeah.
Just when I was listening to you, I thought, the point he's even making there is not even true, right? But the main thing I wanted to say was that sometimes within the Gospels, they arrange things topically. Now, you see this particularly with Matthew's Gospel, where he has the genealogy, the childhood, the teaching of Jesus, so there's a big block of teaching, then a big block of miracles, and things are arranged chronologically. And some of those events are in a slightly different order to other Gospels. But that's not a problem because he's arranged them topically. And maybe that's just what's happening here, that the event of the cleansing of the temple has been arranged topically, so that we can understand the lessons that it teaches us and what Jesus demonstrates, at a different point of time in his life, so we understand different things. There's not a problem with that. It's just been arranged topically, and I think we see that elsewhere in the Bible. And I do want to agree with Bart Ehrman, though. I do want to agree that we should read each gospel account on its own terms, and when John has the cleansing of the temple at the beginning, that's important, and that's how he wants us to understand Jesus. And so I want to agree with Ehrman there, but I want to disagree with him that these accounts are irreconcilable. We've already seen, haven't we, that it may have happened twice. There's reasons for believing that may be the case, or it may be arranged topically. That's a possibility as well. So they're not irreconcilable. And again, I find this an unusual one for him to lead with, when I think you can show that this event can be reconciled quite easily, and everyone's agreeing that Jesus cleansed the temple. Anyway, that'll probably do us for today. So come and join us next week, where we look at the next argument that Bart Ehrman brings up, and that is, how many times did the cock crow? 3 times or just once? We'll see you then.